I didn't kill them, I just shot the aircraft down. If they was unfortunate to get killed in that process, then that's tough luck, as we say in the Air Force. The battle ring was on, and they wanted aircrew and pilots as much as they could, because they were losing a lot and they had to replace them, of course. So you were trained and put through the flying very quickly indeed. The squadron life was very, very joyous. It was like family. When you're a fighter pilot, you're giving a life expectancy of 20 minutes or 15 to 20 minutes. So you all had this knowing that you might go up and not come back. And when you came down, you had to be callous about the thing, because when you came down and said, oh, where's old Roy? Oh, he got the chop. It's just as he's like that. And you said, oh. And you had to be callous enough to not sort of mourn or worry about it, because you might be the next one, you see, so you've got to fly again. You were just getting airborne and climbing as fast as you could go. You took off as a squadron until you met your bombers. And then when you met the bombers, you split up to each one to take a target. I just followed a leader, because at present time then I was untrained and relied upon him to, when he turned, I turned, and so on. We used to go outwards towards the Channel to stop them coming over from France. And they used to come in boxes of hundreds, and you used to get above them and mix in. You've got a microphone, of course, on a mask in front of you, and on that was a switch, of course, which you left on, and you're all on the same frequency, so you spoke to each other. Mostly to watch each other's tail, and so there's something coming down on your tail from 6 o'clock or 5 o'clock. But in combat, not only were you engaged with bombers, and not only were you avoiding Messerschmitts, you were avoiding all the rest of the aircraft milling around, because there were many collisions that happened with your own aircraft, because they were milling around, and you can't watch everything at the same time. If you're watching that and turn, you could turn into another aircraft. So it was a bit, really, your eyes have got to be so good, and your instinctive reactions have got to be good. The main thing in combat is that you have to be observant to see the enemy aircraft, Messerschmitts for instance, coming down on your tail while you're concentrating on a bomber. You had to get flat out to get the height above the bombers. But you could never get above the Messerschmitt fighter escort, because they used to sit way up in 30,000 feet with the sun, and you could never get up that fast. So you just had to get a sufficient height above the bombers and then dive in on the bombers. You've got the firing button on the control column. You've got your sights, like a ring and bead sight, and you put it on your target. And at the same time, you must be very observant that there's no Messerschmitts about to attack you while you're concentrating on the bomber, because that's the way they got most of our people. About 3 seconds on your target, and you press the firing button as soon as you got within range. And then turn both ways to see if anything is attacking you. And if it is, you immediately in the turn. We used to call it a 6 o'clock neck. You had to be able to turn your head 6 o'clock to see anything behind you. Well, if you were concentrating, like a lot of them did, like that, that's exactly what the Messerschmitt used to do, because he used to come behind you and you didn't see him. And if they sent out new pilots, like straight from training, without the experience that I had in the early days, well, they were very, very vulnerable indeed, and they're the ones that got shot down, because they didn't see. Although you shouted at them 6 o'clock, They weren't experienced enough to react and get away from a Messerschmitt. And of course, the Messerschmitt took advantage of this very quickly. The Spitfire fitted you like a glove. You sat in the cockpit and your shoulders were just either side of the fuselage. You felt part of it. I flew instinctively. If you turned your head, the aircraft would turn with you. And so therefore in combat it was very useful indeed, because you see something and you turn, the aircraft would immediately be with you. You're part of it. So the Spitfire was a wonderful aircraft for maneuverability, and it saved my life a few times, because every time you saw an enemy aircraft coming up your tail, you outturned him and got away from him. Now, in those days, we didn't have navigation aids. After a fight, you didn't know where you were. You were up sort of, and there were two cliffs. There was the white cliffs of Calais and white cliffs of Dover. And sometimes you thought, now what the hell, which one are we going for? Well, we did that easily. We always did was put the sun in our back, and we knew then we were heading north to our cliffs. We flew over the white cliffs until we got to the straight railway line that it went from Ashford, Redhill to Ashford in Kent. That railway line was most useful because you used to fly until you got there and then turn left and wait or fly along until you found a V formation in the line. And now you always should turn there to get up that sideline, because that was the way they could go to Biggin Hill. That's the way we used to get back in all kinds of weather, whether you were shot up or that was our navigation. I was very young, I was very inexperienced, and I was following a leader called Squadron leader Stanford Tuck. He was a well-known fighter ace in those days, and I was following him blindly. And he came in to fight, and I just suddenly found myself behind a bomber. This one was trying to creep out on Clacton-on-Sea, and he'd got away from his main forces, you know. So he was pretty well alone, the two that were creeping out. So the Messerschmitts were there, but they didn't come down to us at the time. So I had a go at it. And that was my first victory when I was 19, and that was a great thrill, because it was, I wasn't thinking about killing the pilot, I was just knocking the aircraft down. And that was sort of my idea of, after all, I was there to shoot down bombers. If a fighter engaged me, then I was engaged with a fighter, of course. If they was unfortunate to get killed in that process, then that was tough luck, as we say in the Air Force. You aim for the aircraft and shoot the aircraft down and hope that the pilot can bail out or the crew can bail out. And when I did get that Dornier, all the crew bailed out, so it was rather good. And he crept out over the Clacton-on-Sea, I remember it vividly. Yeah. The trouble I had with the Messerschmitts more was when we got over the Channel and dogfighting there, there's quite a few there. But occasionally, like when I was attacking the bomber, we didn't have a Messerschmitt coming down after you. So it was just luck, really, anything else that I came upon it. And the exhilaration of getting a first aircraft shot down was great, it really was. You calm down eventually when you get on the deck, but it's a buoyancy that you feel. They brief you afterwards, and if you shot down anything, you have to go through and explain what you did, and also whether people can also confirm that they saw it being destroyed, because your word's fine, but unless you see them crash, somebody else will sort of say, yes, I remember him shooting that down. So we had to go through this briefing officer who was taking details of your flight. We had a good old ding-dong when you shot one down. We used to go into the pub at Bromley, and the boys used to whoop it up. Well, I personally, I was a teetotaler, because I felt, only in those days, I felt that You must have alertness, and if you were under the influence of the night before, it would slow you down, which was proved. I mean, people got shot down because they didn't react quickly enough. Your reactions have got to be very quick. So I personally, and my own way, I didn't have any drink whatsoever. I was completely teetotal when I was on ops. And I didn't get involved with girls. And the idea of that is that your life expectancy was only quarter of an hour to 20 minutes. So why should you have a girl that you would leave and it wasn't fair sort of thing. And so I didn't have a girl at all until after I'd finished ops. When you're young and the adrenaline flows, you're afraid, of course, but that's a different way of... nature has a different way of showing fear. Have you ever heard of the people in cold sweat? Well, it did. When you're in combat, the sweat used to trickle down your face, and you used to taste it in your mouth. It's salty, by the way. And but you didn't realise it. It was just that was fear being dissipated within you. It flows through your brains, and you sort of feel energised, and you had no fear, but you did have fear because the sweat used to come down your face. But the adrenaline overcame that, and it gave you that sort of feeling that you wanted to scrap. It was a sort of funny feeling. To me, the flying was wonderful, and fortunately, I know it was dangerous. And we were scared, there's no doubt about that, but you just got stuck in, and I was fortunate to enjoy it.